So we're all coming together in this space for the next 3 days for community solidarity. Woo! Woo! For art activism and visually depicting the world that we want to see, and also showing people the world that we're headed if we don't take action now.
Right.
We're going to be teaching talking about climate justice and why it's important and how it fits in with our overall vision of a world that is socially just. And we're going to be learning the concrete skills for community organizing so that we all can move this movement forward. We're also here today to call out our opposition in the Regents of the University of Colorado. We're here to call out Regent Bosley, the head of the financial investments, who has failed to accept our invitation to be an ally for climate justice.
That's right.
So far.
So far. We're here to put pressure on our opposition by polarizing the overall campus of the University of Colorado so that the opposition can know that there is widespread support for this movement and that they can't wait any longer to take action. First up, we have Tolu, who is an amazing, incredible poet, Denver Youth Poet Laureate. Woo! And she has prepared something to share with us.
Know this. When nature comes back to take her body, expect the violent storm. Expect her hands, the strongest wind whipping the pieces of her stolen self straight from her hands. Expect her not to take sides. The ocean tides for no one. The earth will not remember who protested for her when she finds we have stolen all the gold from her hair, sucked the river water from her veins. How much would you pay to save yourself? Will all the money we spent claiming her landscapes refill the reservoirs, plug up the holes in the mountains, clear up the factory smoke from our lungs, when all that is left is an angry mother bullet-holed from oil drills and choking on the air we've created? Where do you think you will hide? One day, you won't be able to afford the blood of underpaid miners who broke the ground open only to find the work of their hands had filled their children's lungs with dust. One day, we will have burned ourselves into a smoggy empire, trying to keep the lights on. It is so cheap to keep the lights on when it's not your skyline changing or sulfuric acid in your water. The valleys will become oil fields. Where will the future generations run to when the air smells like a war against the dirt we came from? Will the administration keep grasping at the strands of profit, or will you join in the rebuilding? Like the coal plants shut down all over Denver, do not take apathy for an answer. Stand on the side of loving what you've been given. This is more than diplomacy, more than an upworthy article. This is a generation throwing back every negative prediction. We are the battle and the restoration that comes after, armed with policy change and a banner marked with hope. We are a new body born screaming, defending the voice of the earth, of the people on it, the ones who've been told their struggle isn't important or is problematic. When we defend the air, we defend the rights of everyone who breathes it. So join us in this rebuilding.
As Bill McKibben has said, if it's wrong to destroy the planet, it's wrong to profit from that destruction. And so I think, it's incredible what you're all doing and what Stanford University has done. The Rockefeller Brothers Fund has now divested. We have some major funds. I keep getting emails from various sources with different funds that are looking at divestment because they know that, yes, it's wrong. It's morally wrong to be investing in fossil fuels, but it's also not profitable. We're seeing more and more information coming back that people realize that if we have to leave this stuff in the ground to have a livable planet, and we know we do, then we can't go on expecting fossil fuels to be profitable for our companies and for large funds.
I'm here because you folks, we folks, are right. We're on the right side of science. We're on the right side of history. We're on the right side of human survival. And the politicians and a lot of money are on the other side. And so I think these shirts are well labeled people power, because that's the only thing that's going to save it. Does anybody know how the pH of the ocean has changed in the last 200 years? This is perhaps one of the most important couple of numbers that we should take with us today. So
Well, it's gone down, that's
yeah, for about 300 million years, we think it was about 8.2. Today it's 8.1. In the last 200 years, it's gone down 0.1. Now that doesn't sound like much, except that there's a thing called logarithms involved here, which means that that little 0.1 represents a 25% increase in ocean acidity in 200 years. Why is there any resistance? Well, the only reason we have resistance to this is because of lies and money thrown against it. And so I just want to make sure, maybe you all know these things, but I just brought these little guys with me. I have bigger books, but they're too heavy. This guy right here, Merchants of Doubt by Naomi Oreskes and Eric Conway. I presume just about everybody here knows about this, but it's Naomi is a science historian at the University of San Diego, and the subtitle here, how a handful, it's called Merchants of Doubt, because that's all you have to do to not do anything, just get everybody confused. It's all, well, heck, you know, it's not going to be that bad, blah, blah, blah. Remember, the pH of the ocean has changed 25%, and we haven't been lied to about that because nobody even knows it, you know, in the general public. Anyway, the subtitle here is how a handful of scientists obscured the truth on issues from tobacco smoke to global warming. And some of the same dudes that were lying to us all of my life pretty much about smoking being not all that bad are lying to us about global warming. And so when you hear this figure, about 97% of the scientists agree that humans are causing global warming and that there's 3% that disagree with that. Well, when you start investigating that 3%, you find guys like Willie Soon. Does anybody remember Willie Soon? He was in the papers just a couple of months ago. He's Senator Imhoff refers to him all the time when he's trying to make fun of climate science and that sort of thing. Well, Willie Soon was one of this 3%, and the email, Greenpeace uncovered the emails, and he talks about deliverables in his next paper for the payment that he's going to get from the fossil fuel industry. In other words, he's completely on the take, and it's documented in his emails. So this is what the 3% is all about. It's about people who lie to us. So if you have 100 doctors that are going to advise you on health, 97% say give up smoking fossil fuels, and the other 3% disagree with that, but then you find out that they're being paid off by the fossil fuel industry. There's no question at all about the science. And in fact, another little book here, The Climate Cover-Up, this isn't as historical, I guess, as Merchants of Doubt, but James Hogan is an actual PR guy from the inside of the industry. And in this book, it tells you all of the techniques that are used to confuse the public. And it makes for a good read. It's from a PR professional who just got pissed off that his colleagues were lying to the rest of the world about probably the most important single issue long term. There's I guess one other thing, or a couple other things. There's never just one other thing. This is just the first necessary step. In other words, we have to get off of fossil fuels, and it's mathematically possible. Just read my book called Mathematics for the Environment. Take my class, Mathematics for the Environment, Math 2380, a little plug there. But it's mathematically possible, and suppose there were no problems at all. No global warming, no ocean acidification, none of that. Suppose it just disappeared. It still would make a hell of a lot of economic sense to go renewable? Well, industrial agriculture, like in America, takes 10 calories of fossil fuel energy to put 1 calorie of food on our plates. And that fossil fuel energy is coal-powered electricity for refrigeration, it's diesel oil for the trucks that are driving around, it's the natural gas for the fertilizers, it's the petroproducts for the insecticides and all that other stuff. So that is not sustainable. It cannot go on. And we all like to eat. So this movement that we're all a part of here is just the first step. If our civilization is going to survive, it's going to have to be a total transformation. Who cares how much money is involved? It's a philosophical, political statement that says we understand the seriousness of what's going on.
Yeah!
We don't want to have any part of this. Please, divest.
Is the fact that the cost of solar energy has plummeted in the past decade and is now competitive with fossil fuels. If it is wrong for the fossil fuel industry to wreck our planet, it is wrong for the University of Colorado to profit from that destruction. And that is why we continue to call on the Board of Regents to explore divesting from fossil fuels.
So we have all of the components on this campus to help lead us into that future that we really want to see, a future of environmental and social justice. So that's why we're here today, to enable our university to move forward on all fronts towards that vision of our future.
And one thing about occupying space and creating conversations is that if y'all are doing homework, do it out here. If you're eating lunch by yourself, do it out here, because it's really about the community of the people that you're around that will like inspire one another, and maybe you'll come up with like brilliant strategy or like another awesome action together. So do it out here today, tomorrow, and Thursday, and spend time and build that community, because if we're gonna win for climate justice, like we need to be in strong community with one another and have each other's backs. Yeah. They told us it was over. They told us the world gets colder. They told us the world's on our shoulders. We believe that we will win. We believe that we will win. Okay, now repeat after me. I believe. I believe. I believe that. I believe that. I believe that we. I believe that we. I believe that we will. I believe that we will. I believe that we will win. 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 I believe that. They told us the world gets colder. They told us the world's on our shoulders. We believe that we will win. We believe that we will win. Like the waters, trying to calm this crisis down. I hear the voices of my great-granddaughters saying, divest, see you now.
What do we want?
Divestment!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Divestment!
When do we want it?
Now!
Right now?
Right now!
Right now?
Right now! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Divestment! When do we want it? Now! Right now! Right now!
2, 3.
We're talking about climate justice, and we're talking about how the university needs to respond to the imminent crises of our generation. Please join us in about 5 minutes.
If we invest in renewable energy, rapid decarbonization of the economy, and especially things like energy storage, we might be able to avert some of the worst problems. And think about, first of all, that CU is a public institution, right, and it has a kind of public mission. It's a question of power, and power alone, really, of who gets to make that call, who gets to call what social what. So basically, there's a 4-year dry spell in California right now, and that's kind of compounded on top of the past 20 years in the western U.S., which have been anomalously dry for at least our recent experience, but that are in line with previous climate records. There was a drought in the Southwest between 1900 CE and about 1200 CE that lasted over 300 years, close to 400 years, wiped out a good number of indigenous civilizations. When people can't eat, drink, be warm, get health care, they move. Right? They leave, they go someplace else. Our refugees don't have running water, don't have sewage. They go out back and squat in holes. And their water is, when they can get it out of the wells, it's poisonous.
All these countries came together to say that we shouldn't raise the global temperature more than 2 degrees Celsius above, the previous average. Where we, as a species, as a society, came to thrive. So we all agree on this. We shouldn't raise the temperature by more than 2 degrees Celsius. However, to make that happen, there's a certain amount of carbon that we can take out of the ground, sell, and burn, and put into the atmosphere. However, the amount of carbon reserves that are known, that are currently in the hands of the fossil fuel industry, is about 4 to 5 times that amount of carbon that will be saved to burn. Those people who will be more gravely affected by this crisis are the people who are the least responsible for creating those changes and for wrecking the climate in the way we have. And then there's some of us who will be affected for sure in some way, but we're in the richer society, so we tend to be generally more resilient, and we'll see less of the impacts, and we'll be able to recover more readily from those impacts. We are not only relatively sheltered from the impacts of the environmental crisis, but we're actually also closer to the institutions of power that may have an influence over which way things go. That's why here at students at CU and hundreds of other universities across the US and hundreds of institutions across the world, people are telling those institutions, let's get our money out of the fossil fuel industry. Why? Because as we mentioned before, if it's wrong to wreck the planet, it's wrong to profit from that destruction. But at the same time, there's a real strategic reason for it, and the reason is that making the statement by taking our money out of those companies, it might not actually bankrupt them financially because they're huge and they're so rich and they're massive, and they'll find ways the market will adjust to ensure that they find some way of making money one way or another. But we can bankrupt them morally. What some people say, we remove the social license to operate. Because their actual legal licenses are not being removed, because they actually have a strong control over the political system that should be regulating them and protecting us and future generations and other folks around the world. We have some great science around it. We have great work stores, renewable energies, and all these things, but we're still placing our money, on the side of the companies that are going to burn all this carbon. So what we're asking our university is to align our principles with our investments, so that we can bet on the side we actually want to see win this game.
I'm on the Board of Regents for the University of Colorado. We have a board meeting Thursday where we are going to talk about divestment. It's at the University of Colorado, Denver at the Tivoli. I'm trying to get the votes for a committee to study sustainable investment practices, to advise the treasurer, and to report on a regular basis to the Board of Regents. I support reasonable, responsible divestment. I have and I will, and I will continue to work on your behalf to make sure that the Regents are paying attention to this issue. And I will try as best I can to educate them about why we need to do it, why we as a society need to divest in fossil fuels and invest. It's a duplicate strategy. It's not just a divestment, it's an investment strategy, because you want to be investing in companies that have alternative energy and are going to lead us into a fossil-free future. And I know this is a hard week. The timing was the national timing. I'm thrilled with all of the protests that are going on all the different campuses across the country. And what's particularly interesting to me is that it has moved beyond a strictly student movement. You have a lot of professors. You have donors. This is where universities really start to pay attention. There are groups of donors at Brandeis, at Yale, at Harvard that are coming together and supporting the students. What you'll hear from the regents is a lot of talk about there's regent rules against this and there's regent rules against that, and that's why we can't. Regent rules can always be changed. Woo! So I know it can be done. It's not easy, but it needs to be. And thank you again for all of you. Keep the pressure on me and on us and on our society to make this happen.
I am Chief Investment Officer and an investment advisor for Horizons Sustainable Financial Services. 100% of our assets are invested in one way or another in sustainable, responsible impact investments. Right? There's a key component of sustainable, responsible impact investment that brings light to that power. By leveraging the economic influence of the more than $3 trillion invested by regular people like you and me, we can be a major catalyst for change in our world. Humanity's 250-year reliance on fossil fuels, accelerating all the way, has driven the Earth's ecological balance to the brink. We understand that something needs to be done, and quickly, if we're to prevent ecological collapse. But what needs to be done, and when, and by whom? More and more people are answering divestment from carbon energy companies, now, and all of us. There's a new piece that came out on Friday in The Guardian. MSCI, Morgan Stanley, has done research over the last 5 years, from 2010 through 2014, an index based on zero carbon energy portfolios outperformed by about 1.2% per year average the similar carbon energy intensive portfolio. Institutional divestment appears to be gathering momentum with high-profile organizations such as Stanford University, the New School in New York, and even the government pension fund Global, Norway's national sovereign wealth fund, making announcements that they have plans to divest from the worst of the carbon fuels, coal and tar sands oil, mostly. All three of these institutions, when asked why they chose to divest, pointed to the long-term risks facing carbon energy companies due to climate change. The climate crisis and the part played by our reliance on carbon energy is driving the crisis forward, and it appears to us to be one of the key political, economic, and moral issues of the age. We're glad to hear that the Board of Regents is considering the possibility of divestment from carbon energy stocks, and we'd be delighted to participate in any future discussions.
Dollar store.
Well, what is the escalator? What is the mechanism of the escalator? What's it for? Brings you up, right? Gets you from point A to point B. Gets you to a goal. So we're escalating. So now we kind of know where that word comes from, right? We're moving up. Each time that we do an action, we move up one more stair. We're moving closer to our goal. And I think a lot of people will sit around looking at us and they say, well, why don't you just talk to the Board of Regents? They're reasonable, right? And Linda Shoemaker certainly is very reasonable. But the truth is, we've been talking to the Regents for about 2.5 years. And in 2.5 years, we have seen such major climate crises, such major extreme weather events as the flood here in Boulder, Colorado. A flood that killed a friend, one of my best friends, really good friends. And so when we talk about climate change being in the future, this like far off thing, that's a misnomer, actually. Climate change is here. It's been here for a while. you know, Kelsey Cody is talking about LA. You know, LA is going to run out of water in a year. Can you imagine running out of water? We use water for everything. So we're here because we know that talking is important. We're never going to stop talking. We're going to negotiate, right? That's a part of getting things done. But we also know that, in the words of a very good friend of mine, Scott Silver, who's done a lot of escalating on this very campus, nothing ever got done unless he made a big public stink about it. The public does have to know what's going on, right? And either they're going to like it or they're not. And that's okay. That's okay when people don't like it. But we know that when we polarize, we move people to one side or the other, we figure out who our allies are, and we can put real pressure from the outside. We're taking risk. We're showing that students are willing to sacrifice, while the Board of Regents, excluding Linda Shoemaker, might be afraid to take bold action on the climate crisis. We are not. Harvard right now, this morning I woke up and I checked my Facebook page, and Harvard is blocking the entire building of their administration.
And yesterday, the president of Harvard University convened a high-level panel at Sanders Theater on climate change, and she's totally aligned with the people that are moving towards divestment.
Woohoo! So we know it's working. Yeah. Yale last week, 19 students were arrested. The administration of Yale said they'd rather arrest students than talk about combating the climate crisis. So we're here because we know we're on an escalator and it takes time, but I really want to go get that new pair of Levi's. And what I mean by Levi's is I really want a just and sustainable future. I want to say that Levi's is actually a really green company. But you know, this isn't really a stretch for where we're at. It's been 2.5 years. We've been bringing in financial experts. We've been talking about this for a really long time. And it's not really a question of why. It's not really a question of how. It's really just a question of when.
Yeah! Might be a good idea to try to figure out how we might avoid becoming international news like this in the future. And you know, what is there some structural change that we might have? And people would speak up. You know, I propose that we go meet with Stefano. They're scared to do it. Oh my God! Oh. So I've known Phil for 40 years. We've taken diverse paths here. We came at the same time. We organized a meeting. Went over there. We suggested that there be something like a public defender, like in the military. You know, which actually could defend a faculty that was charged, just so that everything could be vetted on campus before it becomes, international news. And they were okay with the idea. In other words, they're not getting any feedback.
We're asking people what side they're on or whose side they're on, and to pick a side. We could be pushing people to actually make a decision about, are you going to be supporting publicly or opposing?
It'll be very interesting to me to see how the national action plays out, because the regents are going to feel that. They're going to be reading about it, and your friends are going to be talking about it. So even if you don't have something exciting going on this campus, if I can get my votes for the committee, it'll be because of all of the actions going on all over the world. And combined